When my son told me I wasn't welcome at my granddaughter's birthday in the house I just bought him, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I smiled, pulled my car over, and made one call. By the time I arrived, I had an injunction, a confession, and 2 police officers waiting. Justice must be served, and arrogance punished. They thought I was just a grieving old man. They forgot I spent 40 years as a judge. My name is Robert Miller, and court was now in session. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up on the side of a highway, dismantling my own son's life. It started 4 hours earlier. The highway was a gray blur. The dashboard clock mocked me. 4 hours of driving. 4 hours toward a future I thought I was building. The silence in the car was heavy. It had been heavy since Martha, my wife, passed away 6 months ago. Retirement wasn't easy. 40 years on the bench presiding over the state's superior court. Now, I was just Robert. Lost. But this trip felt different. This trip was supposed to be a lifeline. A connection. It was Lily's 5th birthday. In the passenger seat, strapped in tight, sat a dollhouse. Not just any dollhouse. It was a replica of the home Martha and I shared for 30 years. Every shingle, every window pane, exact. I'd spent the last 3 months working with a craftsman, agonizing over the details. Martha would have loved it. Lily would love it. I gripped the steering wheel. My hands felt stiff. I was doing this for them, for family, even if family felt very far away lately. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. I liquidated my portfolio. Assets. Martha and I built over a lifetime of saving, of saying no to extravagance. I did it because my son David and his wife Sarah needed a proper foundation. They found a mansion. It was absurd. White pillars, a gated entrance, more bathrooms than people. It cost millions, money earmarked for Lily's education. For my own long-term care, I had emptied my life savings for their dream. I remember the conversation clearly. We were sitting in my study. David wouldn't look me in the eye. He kept fidgeting with his expensive watch. "It's about the school district, Dad," David argued. His voice was tight, strained, an ambition I didn't recognize. "Lily deserves the best. The best is expensive, David," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "This is everything." That's when Sarah stepped in. She always knew when to strike. Sarah put a hand on David's shoulder, a possessive gesture. "Robert, it's more than just schools. It's an investment. My consulting firm needs a prestigious address. We need the space to establish ourselves." Her firm, I had deep reservations. Sarah always possessed a hunger, a desperate need for more. I understood it. In a way, she grew up poor, terrified of ever going back. When David married her, I saw a woman drowning in insecurity. I thought my Marsism would soften her. I thought it would buy me acceptance. I was wrong. I was buying their loyalty, and the price was too high. But I wanted my son to be happy. I adored Lily. She was the light in my dark world. So, I ignored the warning bells. I ignored the ladness in Sarah's eyes. I bought the mansion. It was their fresh start. A legacy secured, or so I thought. The first crack appeared. Almost immediately, the closing was rushed. Sarah insisted they needed to move in immediately. I had intended to set up an irrevocable trust for Lily, placing the house within it. "The trust will take a few weeks to finalize, Robert," my lawyer had warned, so I bought the house in my name. Temporarily, I held the deed. It seemed safe enough. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Then came the final walkthrough. I was supposed to be there. It was scheduled for a Tuesday, but David called the day before. "Dad, you really don't need to drive all the way down," he said, his voice too casual, too rehearsed. "It's just looking at an empty house." "I want to be there, David," I insisted. "It's a significant purchase." "Sarah insists we can handle it," he pushed back. "We'll sign the final acceptance forms and get the keys." "It's just a formality, Dad. Save yourself the trip." I hesitated. I was tired, still grieving Martha. The emptiness of my own house was suffocating. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Absolutely. We've got this." I reluctantly agreed. It seemed harmless at the time. Now I see it for what it was. The first move in a calculated deception. They didn't want me there. They didn't want me checking the paperwork. They were already locking me out. Back on the highway, I was only an hour away. The anticipation was a gentle warmth in my chest, a rare feeling of lightness. I pictured Lily's face when she saw the dollhouse. I pictured a hug from my son, a real hug. I was fooling myself. The warmth was just an illusion. The cold reality was about to hit me like a freight train. My phone rang, connected to the car's Bluetooth. David's name flashed on the screen. A smile touched my lips. "Hey, son," I said, cheerful. "Making good time. Should be there right at 3. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. The kind I used to hear in my courtroom right before a guilty verdict. My smile faded. "David, you there?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Dad." His voice was strained, barely a whisper. The warmth in my chest vanished, replaced by a familiar cold dread. What's wrong? Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine. It's Sarah." The name hung in the air, bitter, sharp. "What about Sarah?" I asked. My voice hardened, the judge taking over the grandfather. There was another pause. I could hear him breathing, shallow, scared. "She doesn't want you here," David stammered. I frowned. "Doesn't want me there?" "David, it's Lily's birthday. I'm almost there." "I know, Dad, but she says you'll ruin the atmosphere." "Ruin the atmosphere." The words hit me like a slap. "Ruin the atmosphere," I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "What does that mean?" "We have some very important people coming over," David rushed out. "Sarah's new contacts. Her business associates. She thinks you won't fit in." "Not fit in the house I paid for. With my life savings." The betrayal was profound, precise, debilitating. My vision blurred, not from the road, but from a sudden, hot sting of tears. It wasn't just Sarah's cruelty, it was David's weakness. My son, the boy I raised to be a man of integrity, he was allowing this. They had let me drive 4 hours, knowing they would turn me away. The humiliation was calculated. It was deliberate. They wanted me to feel small. I took a slow, deep breath, forcing the emotion down, compartmentalizing the pain. 40 years as a judge taught me control. You don't react with emotion. You react with analysis. "Dad, did you hear me?" David's voice was pleading, weak. "Please just go home. We'll celebrate with Lily another time." Another time. Another time. The dismissal was casual, careless, as if I were an unwelcome salesman, not the architect of their entire lifestyle. I looked at the dollhouse. Martha's house. Our house. I thought about Lily's bright smile, and I thought about the mansion, the symbol of my sacrifice, now twisted into a monument of their entitlement. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. "Understood," I said, my voice flat, steady, dead. David let out a relieved sigh. The sound of cowardice. "Thank you, Dad. I'm sorry. I really am." He hung up. The silence in the car amplified the storm in my head. I pulled over to the side of the highway. The engine idled. They thought I would just turn around, crawl back home, nurse my wounded feelings. They saw a quiet old man, a retired judge, grieving, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. They didn't see the man who had spent decades dissecting lies, who understood the darkest corners of human greed, who knew how to dismantle a fraud, piece by piece. I wasn't just hurt, I felt a chilling clarity. This wasn't just cruel. It was reckless. Sarah was insecure, yes, but she wasn't stupid. Banishing me on Lily's birthday, right after I provided this incredible gift? It felt too extreme, even for her. It felt like a move in a much larger game. My mind started working, analyzing the situation like a complex case file. Why now? Why the urgency? If this was how they acted right after getting the house, how long before I was completely cut off from Lily? This wasn't about a party. This was about control. And something felt terribly wrong. I picked up my phone again. I didn't call David. I called Michael. Michael was my former law partner, the best forensic accountant I knew, and the only man I trusted implicitly. He owed me a few favors. He answered on the second ring. "Robert, How's retirement treating you? Enjoying the party? His voice was warm, friendly. It's complicated, Michael, I said, keeping my tone even. I need a favor, a serious one, and I need it fast. Anything for you, Robert? You know that. What's going on? 3 weeks ago, I bought a property for my son and his wife. The address is 1500 Oakwood Lane. I paused. I need you to pull the deed and all associated documents filed in the last month. Immediately. Michael paused. I could hear the shift in his tone, the accountant taking over the friend. That sounds easy enough. But why the urgency? Are you worried about the title? I'm worried about everything, I admitted. The words tasted like ash. They just uninvited me from the birthday party in the house I bought. Michael cursed under his breath. That's cold, Robert. Even for Sarah, I always said that woman was trouble. It's more than cold, Michael. It's suspicious. It feels strategic. Just check the filings. Please. I'm on it. Give me 30 minutes. I hung up and pulled back onto the highway. I wasn't driving to a party anymore. I was driving to a crime scene. I had about an hour left, an hour to figure out what game Sarah was playing, and how to stop her. I analyzed every interaction during the purchase process, looking for anomalies, inconsistencies. The final walkthrough, the one I missed, that was the key. My grief had made me vulnerable. I had trusted them. I had let my guard down. The realization stung deeply, but grief wasn't a weakness. It was a motivator. They had used my love for Martha, my love for Lily, against me. I wouldn't let them get away with it. The judge was back, and he was angry. 30 minutes later, Michael called back. His voice was no longer warm. It was cold, professional, tight with controlled anger. Robert, you need to brace yourself, he said. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Just tell me, Michael. I can handle it. The deed was clear when you bought it. You are, or were, the sole owner. Were. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. What do you mean, were? I asked. My voice strained. 2 days ago, a quitclaim deed was filed with the county recorder. My blood ran cold. A quitclaim deed. A document used to transfer property ownership quickly, without lawyers, without protection. Who filed it? I asked, already knowing the answer, the dread pooling in my stomach. Your daughter-in-law, Sarah, Michael confirmed. The document claims you transferred the ownership of the mansion entirely to her, unconditionally. The audacity was staggering. The sheer brazenness of the theft. They hadn't just uninvited me, they had stolen my house. And the signature, my signature. It's a forgery, Robert, Michael said, his voice laced with disgust. A decent one, but clearly not yours when compared to the original purchase documents. I closed my eyes briefly. The depth of the betrayal was sinking in, suffocating me. They were erasing me. But Michael wasn't finished. But that's not the worst of it, Robert. I braced myself. What else? Attached to the quitclaim deed is an affidavit, signed by both Sarah and David. David, my son. Michael's voice was shaking with rage. It states that you gifted them the house outright, and that you have recently been showing signs of cognitive decline, dementia. Dementia. The full scope of their plan snapped into focus, a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. They weren't just stealing my house. They were building a case to discredit me. They were trying to paint me as a confused, incompetent old man, protecting their fraud by destroying my reputation, perhaps even laying the groundwork to seize control of the rest of my assets, a conservatorship. They were effectively declaring me dead in the eyes of the law, and David signed it, my own son. He had participated in this heinous act. He had chosen them over me. The pain was unbearable, but the clarity was absolute. Now I understood why they didn't want me at the party. They filed the papers 2 days ago. They assumed the transfer was complete. They didn't need me anymore. My presence was a threat. Banishing me was a preemptive strike, a way to assert their dominance, to isolate me. They thought they had won. They underestimated you, Robert, Michael said. They did, I replied, my voice hardening. The sadness was still there. A heavy weight, but it was being rapidly overtaken by a cold, calculated fury. If you're still hooked on this story, hit like before we continue. It means a lot. I spent 40 years upholding the law. I would not allow it to be used as a weapon against me. I need an injunction, I said, the strategy forming in my mind. Freeze the property transfer immediately. Allege fraud and forgery. I'm already drafting it, Michael said. But we need proof. Solid proof. Where did they get the quitclaim deed notarized? I asked. They needed a witness. A notary is the weak link. Hold on, I heard clicking in the background. Michael was working fast. Got it. It was notarized by a man named Kevin Scotts. He runs a small mobile notary service. Do a background check, I ordered. More clicking? He's got a gambling problem, Robert. Deep in debt. Judgments against him. Vulnerable. Perfect. Find him, I said. He knows he participated in a fraud. If you pressure him, he'll crack. Offer him immunity in exchange for a sworn statement. A confession. I know just the private investigator for the job, Michael said. He'll have him located within the hour. Good. And Michael, I need you to call the district attorney's office. This is a felony. Forgery. Fraud. Elder financial abuse. I'm ready to pull the trigger, Michael said. Not yet, I said. I want to give my son one last chance. I want to look him in the eye when he realizes what he's done. A father's last hope. A judge's final verdict. But have the police ready, I continued. On standby, close to the property. And Michael, I need you here. As a witness, as my lawyer. I'm already on my way, Michael said. I'll meet you there.
I hung up. I was only 10 minutes away from the mansion.
My plan was solidifying. I needed a confrontation. I needed to expose them publicly. But first I needed one more piece of the puzzle. The walkthrough. Who was there? I called Jessica, the real estate agent who handled the sale. Young, eager, naive. She had been overly eager to please Sarah throughout the process. Mr. Miller, what a pleasant surprise, she answered cheerfully. Jessica, I'm calling about a small detail regarding the final closing documents, I said, keeping my tone light. Conversational, specifically the acceptance form signed during the walkthrough. My accountant needs clarification for tax purposes. Oh, of course, Jessica said. I can send you copies. That would be great. It was a bit chaotic that day, wasn't it? I recall Sarah was in quite a rush. Jessica hesitated. The cheerful tone vanished, replaced by a guarded caution. Well, yes, it was a bit unusual. Unusual how? I pressed gently. She insisted on using her own notary instead of the one provided by the title company. She said it was more convenient. Her own notary, Kevin Scotts. Did you meet him? I asked, feigning mild curiosity. Briefly, Jessica admitted. He seemed a bit nervous, sweating profusely, but Sarah said he was a family friend. I didn't want to question it. I just wanted to make sure the sale closed smoothly for you. She was a witness, not an accomplice. Of course. Thank you, Jessica. One more thing. I paused. Did Sarah mention anything about the ownership structure? Any changes she wanted to make? Another pause, longer this time. She did ask a few hypothetical questions. About what? About quitclaim deeds, Jessica said quietly. How quickly they could be processed. I told her it was complicated, especially with a property of this value, but she was very persistent. Thank you, Jessica. You've been very helpful. I hung up. The evidence was complete. Sarah orchestrated the entire thing. She found a compromised notary. She pressured David into signing the affidavit. She is the ambitious real estate agent to gather information. It was a clumsy fraud, driven by greed and desperation. But it could have worked if I hadn't questioned it, if I had simply turned around and gone home. But that was not who I was. I was Judge Robert Miller, and I was about to deliver my verdict. An hour after David's call, I pulled up to the gates of 1500 Oakwood Lane. The mansion was imposing, beautiful but cold. Music and laughter drifted from the backyard. I could see dozens of luxury cars parked in the circular driveway. Sarah always liked an audience. Good. So did I. I parked my car, blocking the exit. No one was leaving until this was over. I left the dollhouse in the car. This was no longer a birthday celebration. It was a reckoning. I walked up the stone steps and opened the front door. My house. My rules. The foyer was vast. Sterile shades of gray and white. Cold. Just like Sarah. I followed the sound of the music toward the back of the house. I stepped out onto the patio. It wasn't just a birthday party. It was a gala. A jazz band was playing by the pool. Waiters circulated with champagne. At least 50 adults, dressed in expensive clothes. The social elite Sarah so desperately craved acceptance from. These were the important people she didn't want me to embarrass her in front of. The irony was crushing, and there in the center was Lily, wearing a princess dress, looking completely overwhelmed, ignored, while Sarah held court with her new friends, laughing too loudly, drinking too much. David was standing by the bar, pale, anxious, nursing a drink. He looked like a ghost haunting his own life. He saw me first. The music died down as people noticed me. The chatter stopped. All eyes turned toward me, the unwelcome guest. David dropped his glass. It shattered on the stone tiles. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. He looked terrified. Sarah turned toward me, her face contorted with fury. She marched toward me, her heels clicking aggressively on the patio. She stopped inches from my face. Her perfume was expensive, overpowering. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, keeping her voice low but intense. "David told you to leave. You are not welcome here." I ignored her. I looked at my son. "David," I said, my voice clear, steady, projecting the authority honed over decades in the courtroom. It carried across the silent patio. "We need to talk." David flinched. He looked pleadingly at Sarah, begging her to save him. The sight turned my stomach. He was a coward. "He doesn't have anything to say to you," Sarah snapped. She stepped in front of me, blocking my view of David. "You need to leave, Robert. You're causing a scene." Then she played the card, the dementia defense. "You're clearly confused." She was trying to establish her narrative, in front of her witnesses. "I am not confused, Sarah," I replied calmly, "and I am not leaving. I am here to celebrate my granddaughter's birthday." I paused. In my house. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. Whispers started. Sarah laughed. A brittle, nervous sound. "Your house?" she scoffed. "Loud enough for everyone to hear. I don't know what delusions you're suffering from, Robert. But this is my house. We have the deed. It's in my name." She turned to the crowd, smiling condescendingly. "My father-in-law is unwell. He meant well, but it's time for him to go home. He's been forgetting things lately. It's very sad." She was good, convincing, but I was better. I held my ground. "The deed you are referring to, Sarah, is a quitclaim deed, filed 2 days ago." I paused for dramatic effect. With my forged signature, the word forged hung in the air like a thunderclap. The silence deepened. The tension was palpable. David looked like he was going to be sick. Sarah's face hardened, the mask slipping, revealing the cold ambition beneath. "That's a vicious lie. You gifted us this house. You signed the papers." "David, tell them." All eyes turned to David. This was his moment, his last chance. I was offering him a lifeline, a chance to choose the truth, to salvage what little integrity he had left, to save himself. He looked at me, his eyes filled with fear and shame. I waited, hoping, praying that the boy I raised, the son Martha had adored, was still in there somewhere. But the fear of Sarah, the fear of losing this extravagant life, the fear of facing the consequences, it was stronger than his conscience. It was stronger than his conscience. "Yes," he mumbled, looking at the ground, his voice barely audible. "He gifted it to us. He signed the papers. He's just forgetting." The pain of his betrayal was sharper, deeper than anything Sarah could inflict. My son had chosen his side. He had dropped the lifeline. The betrayal was complete. "I see," I said, my voice heavy with finality. "Understood." It was time to execute the final phase of the plan. Right on cue, the front door opened. Michael Chen walked onto the patio. Behind him were 2 state police officers. Uniformed. Official. Very out of place at the gala. And behind the officers was a trembling man in a cheap suit, sweating profusely. Kevin Scott's. The notary. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. She took a step back, her composure shattering. What is this? Who are these people? Michael walked up to me, ignoring Sarah. He handed me a thick envelope. Robert, he said, his voice loud and clear, addressing the entire crowd. Here is the emergency court injunction, signed by Judge Henderson 30 minutes ago. He turned to the crowd. The transfer of the property at 1500 Oakwood Lane is officially frozen, effective immediately. Sarah gasped. This is ridiculous. You can't do this. This is my house. Michael turned to her, his expression cold. Actually, we can. The injunction is based on compelling evidence of fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. The crowd was silent, watching, judging. One of the police officers stepped forward, pointing at Kevin Scott's. Mrs. Sarah Miller? This man has provided a sworn statement. Kevin Scott's nodded miserably, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The officer continued. He confessed that you bribed him to backdate the quitclaim deed and to falsely notarize a signature he knew was forged. But there was more. He also provided us with audio recordings of your conversations. The crowd erupted in whispers. Sarah's friends backed away from her, as if she were contagious. The social standing she so desperately craved evaporated in an instant. The queen of the mansion was exposed as a common thief. He's lying, Sarah screamed, desperate, her voice cracking. He's trying to frame me. Then she did the unthinkable. She turned on her husband. It was David's idea, she shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at him. David made me do it. The affidavit about the dementia? That was his idea, the ultimate betrayal in her moment of desperation. David looked at her, horrified, the realization of her true nature finally hitting him. Sarah, how could you? He whispered. You forged the signature. You planned everything. They turned on each other, their toxic partnership dissolving in seconds, their carefully constructed lies shattering around them. It was pathetic. The officer moved toward them. Sarah Miller, David Miller, you are both under arrest. The officers moved in and handcuffed them. The sound of the metal clicking shut echoed across the silent patio. It was the sound of justice being served. As they led Sarah away, she looked back at me, her face contorted with rage and disbelief. You ruined everything, Robert. You destroyed our lives. No, Sarah, I said quietly. You did that yourself. You mistook my generosity for weakness, and my grief for vulnerability. She had nothing left to say. David walked past me, his head down, tears streaming down his face. He paused, looking at me with broken eyes. Dad, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I was weak. I let her. I know, I said, my voice heavy with sadness. I know. Watching my son being led away in handcuffs was a victory tainted by profound loss. I'd saved my Addis, but I had lost my son. The party was over. The guests quickly dispersed. Eager to escape the scandal, the jazz band packed up their instruments. The mansion was finally silent. Michael stood next to me. We did it, Robert. It's over. It's never really over, Michael, I said, looking at the empty patio. But it's a start. I walked over to Lily. She was sitting alone by the pool, watching the reflections on the water, confused by the sudden chaos. Grandpa, she exclaimed, her face lighting up when she saw me. You came. I did, sweet girl, I said, sitting down next to her. My heart ached for her innocence, for the chaos her parents had brought into her life. Where did Mommy and Daddy go? She asked, her eyes wide and searching. They had to leave for a little while, I said gently, pulling her onto my lap. But I'm here now, and I brought you something. I signaled to Michael. He retrieved the dollhouse from my car, the replica of Martha's home. Lily gasped when she saw it, her eyes wide with wonder. For a moment, the darkness faded. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The story hit the news. The scandal was public, the humiliation complete. Sarah and David, facing overwhelming evidence, were indicted on multiple felony charges.
I sold the mansion.
I didn't want anything to do with it. It was never a home. It was a monument to greed. The money from the sale was placed in the trust for Lily. Ironclad, secure, Lily came to live with me, back in the house I shared with Martha. Social services granted me full custody. It was a difficult adjustment. She missed her parents. But we managed. We found a rhythm. We set up the dollhouse in her new room. We spent hours playing together, creating a world where families were safe, where love was unconditional. David and Sarah both went to prison. David, showing genuine remorse, received a lighter sentence. Sarah, defiant to the end, received the maximum. When David got out, he started over. He works a construction job now. He visits Lily every weekend. Our conversations are strained, polite. The trust is gone. Perhaps forever. He is trying to rebuild his life. Maybe one day the wounds will heal, but the scars will remain. Sometimes I think back to that day on the highway, the moment when I decided not to turn around, the moment when I realized that justice was more important than peace, that love without respect is meaningless. I am an old man now. My life is quiet, simple. I lost my son, but I saved my granddaughter. I lost my savings, but I kept my integrity. Last night, Lily asked me why I became a judge. I looked at her, her eyes wide and curious, the same eyes as Martha. Because, sweet girl, I told her, sometimes people forget the difference between right and wrong. They forget that actions have consequences. And sometimes someone needs to remind them. I tucked her into bed and watched her sleep. The dollhouse stood in the corner of her room, a symbol of a home built not on money or greed, but on love, sacrifice, and the unwavering belief that, in the end, the truth always prevails. And as I turned off the light, I realized that despite the pain, despite the betrayal, I was finally at peace. Thanks for walking this journey with us. Tap like and let us feel you here.